Hey, my name is Simon Greer. I'm 32 years old and I sell flowers for a living in a town called Ashgrove. In a little shop on a corner that my mother opened 40 years ago and named Marguerite's after herself, because she said, if you're going to spend your life making other people's declarations of love you, may as well put your own name on the door. My mother could look at a person for 30 seconds and tell you their whole heart. She'd watch a man linger over the roses and know he'd had a fight and was sorry. She'd watch a woman's hand drift toward the lilies and know there'd been a funeral. She'd read grief and hope and apology and courtship off people the way other folks read a newspaper. And then she'd build them the exact bouquet their unspoken feelings needed, and they'd leave lighter than they came. She taught me all of it. She taught me the old language of flowers, what each bloom means, that a red tulip is a declaration of love and a white one is a plea for forgiveness, that ambrosia means your love is returned, that a single purple lilac is the first stirring of feeling. She taught me to say with a bouquet the things people can't get their mouths around. I watched her do it 1,000 times growing up. A man would come in gray-faced and mumbling, unable to say he was sorry, unable even to say what he'd done, and my mother would ask 2 gentle questions and then hand him white tulips and a sprig of something and say, "Give her these, don't say anything. She'll understand." And a week later he'd come back to buy the happy flowers, the celebration flowers, because the sorry had been said in a language his marriage could hear when his voice couldn't. She believed, my mother, that half the love in the world goes unspoken, not because people don't feel it, but because they can't find the door in themselves to let it out, and that flowers were a door. A way to hand someone your heart while both of you pretended it was just a nice arrangement. She was never wrong about a person, not once. And then she died, 4 years ago, quietly, in the spring, and left me the shop and the flowers and the whole secret language, and I have kept Marguerite's running ever since, and I can tell you the exact sentiment of every stem in the cooler. What I cannot do, what I have never once in my life been able to do, is say a single one of those things out loud, with my own mouth on my own behalf. Because here is the truth about me, and I might as well get it out of the way at the start. I am, and have always been, the background man, the quiet one, the one people are fond of and never notice. I'm not going to pretend it's a tragedy. Plenty of people have it worse. But I have spent 32 years being the man women confide in about other men. The safe one, the harmless one. When I was 23, I was in love with a girl who spent a whole year crying on my shoulder about a series of louder, brighter men, and one night I finally worked up the nerve to tell her how I felt. And she smiled so kindly it broke something in me and said, "Oh, Simon, you're like a brother to me." And I decided, standing there, that this was simply the shape of my life. That some men are the ones who get chosen, the confident ones, the ones who fill a room, and some men are the safe harbor other people rest in on their way to those men, and I was the second kind. And the kindest thing I could do for myself was to stop hoping otherwise. So I built a quiet life in a flower shop where I could give people the exact words their hearts needed and never once have to risk saying my own, and I told myself it was enough, and it almost was. Right up until a woman started leaving her umbrella at my shop, and it took me, to my eternal shame, 3 of them, and a scolding from a 70-year-old woman to understand what was happening right in front of my face. She started coming in at the end of the summer. I noticed her the first time, because I notice everyone the first time. It's the job, and what I noticed was that she bought flowers for no occasion. That's rare. Most people buy flowers because something happened. A birthday, a death, an apology owed. But this woman, and I learned her name was Clara because I make people write it on the card even when there's no card, Clara Novak just came in and bought a small bunch of whatever was cheerful, cornflowers or ranunculus or a few stems of stock. And when I asked, gently, professionally, who they were for, she said, a little embarrassed, "Me. They're for me. I just moved here, and my apartment's so empty and quiet, and I read somewhere that you should buy yourself flowers instead of waiting for someone else to. So, that's what I'm doing. I'm not waiting. And something about a woman buying herself flowers to make a lonely new apartment feel less lonely went straight through me, because I understood it exactly. The making of small warmth for yourself when there's no one else to make it, and I built her that first bunch with more care than the money warranted, and I've been doing it ever since. She came every week after that. Fridays usually at the end of the day, and I started, without ever admitting it to myself, to arrange my Fridays around the possibility of her, to keep the good stems back, the freshest ones, in case Clara came. And I started doing a thing my mother would have caught me at instantly. I started slipping things into her bouquets, not charging for them, a single stem of purple lilac, which means the first stirring of love, a sprig of ambrosia when I could get it, which means your love is returned, though it wasn't, it was just me. Saying a thing in a language she couldn't read into a bouquet she'd never decode, which is the most cowardly declaration a man can make, and the only one I had the nerve for. I told myself it was good business. I told myself a lot of things. The Fridays had a shape to them that I lived inside all week without admitting it. She'd come near closing, when the light was going gold and low through the front window, and she'd take her time, and I'd take mine, and we'd talk about nothing that mattered and everything that did. She told me over the weeks, in pieces the way people do at a flower counter, that she'd left the city and a job in it and a man attached to the job, a confident, charming, well-dressed man who had made her feel, over 3 years, smaller and smaller, until she'd looked around one day and realized she'd become an accessory to someone else's life. So she'd left, all of it, and come to Ashgrove where she knew no one, to find out if there was still a version of her that took up space. And she said the flowers were part of that, buying herself something beautiful every week, proof she was allowed to want things. And I stood there behind my counter and understood her completely, because I too had made myself small, just in a different way, and I wanted to tell her that, wanted to say we're the same, you and I, we both went quiet to keep from being hurt. But of course I said nothing. I just built her a bouquet with an extra stem of something hopeful hidden in it and let her carry my whole unspoken heart out the door in a paper wrap, week after week. One Friday she stayed until I was cashing out the till, and I walked her to the door, and we stood in it a moment too long, the streetlights just coming on. And something could have happened. The air had that held quality. And I felt it and I froze, because a man who's decided he's unpickable does not lean into a held moment. He steps back and says goodnight and hates himself on the walk upstairs, which is exactly what I did. Clara was, I should say, the loveliest person who had ever regularly stood on the other side of my counter. Not just to look at, though she was that. Dark hair and a quick shy smile and a way of tucking her hair behind her ear when she was deciding something. She was kind. She learned Winnie's name and asked after Winnie's hip. She always looked at the whole shop like it was a small miracle, which to me it is. And she talked to me, actually talked, lingered at the counter longer than buying a small bunch of cornflowers required, asked me about the flowers and the shop and my mother, and I answered. And I was so busy being quietly grateful for the 15 minutes of her that it never once, not one single time, occurred to me that the 15 minutes might be the point. Because women like Clara don't linger for men like me. That was simply a law of physics as far as I was concerned, as fixed as gravity. She liked the shop. She liked the flowers. She was lonely and new in town, and my counter was a warm place to stand for a few minutes on a Friday. That was the whole of it. I had decided the shape of my life at 23, and I was not about to go rewriting the laws of physics at 32 just because a beautiful woman was kind to me. Then it started to rain. Ashgrove gets a wet autumn, weeks of it. The kind of gray, steady rain that makes a warm, lit flower shop glow like a lantern from the street, And one Friday Clara came in shaking the rain off a yellow umbrella, and she bought her flowers, and we talked longer than usual because the rain does that, seals a shop up cozy, and then she gathered her flowers and hurried out into the wet. And she left the umbrella. Leaning against the counter, bright yellow, unmistakable, I noticed the second the door closed, and I grabbed it and went to the door, but she was already gone into the rain, and so I did the sensible thing. I stood it behind the counter to keep it safe for her, and the next Friday when she came in, I handed it to her and said, "You left this last week. I kept it safe." And she went a little pink and said, "Oh, thank you." I'd have caught my death, and took it and bought her flowers, and we talked, and it was a good Friday. And then she left it again. Same umbrella, same spot against the counter, and again I found it after she'd gone, and again I kept it safe, and again the next Friday I handed it back with a smile and said, "You did it again." And she laughed, embarrassed, and said I'm hopeless, and I said it's no trouble, honestly, I like knowing you'll have to come back for it, which I meant as a small joke about the umbrella, and which was, I realize now, the single most honest thing I said in that entire period of my life, and which sailed straight over both our heads. And then she left it a third time. Now I want to pause here, because I have told this story to exactly 3 people since, and all 3 of them have looked at me the way you'd look at a dog that can't find the ball that's in its mouth. A woman left her umbrella at my shop 3 times. In the rain. 3 times. And I, Simon Greer, who can read a stranger's entire romantic history off the way they touch a rose, who was taught by the best flower reader in the county, looked at that yellow umbrella against my counter for the 3rd time and thought, poor Clara, she really is the most forgetful person alive. I kept all 3 of them, by the way. That's the part that gets me now. She only ever left the one umbrella. She'd retrieve it and leave it again, but there was a stretch where I had, briefly, 3 different forgotten things of hers behind that counter, a scarf once and a paperback, and the umbrella, and I could not bring myself to throw away or shelve a single one of them. I kept them lined up like small relics, and I never once asked myself why a man keeps a lonely little museum of a woman's forgotten things if she's nothing to him but a Friday customer. The heart knows things the head refuses to be told. Winnie knew. Winnie has helped in the shop for 20 years. Since before my mother got sick, she was Mum's oldest friend, and she stayed on to keep an eye on me and the ledger both. And she is 70 years old and sharp as a thorn, and she had been watching this entire umbrella saga with the mounting disbelief of a woman watching someone fail to notice their house is on fire. After the 3rd umbrella, after Clara had gone back out into the rain and I'd tucked the yellow umbrella tenderly behind the counter for safekeeping like the world's biggest fool, Winnie put down her shears and said, "Simon, sit down. I have to tell you something, and I need you to hear it, because your mother is not here to knock it into you, and someone has to." "What?" I said. "That girl," Winnie said, "is not forgetting her umbrella." I laughed. I actually laughed gently the way you laugh at a kind old woman who's got the wrong end of a thing, and I said, "Winnie, she's just forgetful. It's sweet she, Simon Greer." Winnie's voice cracked like a branch. "It is raining. It has been raining for 3 weeks. Do you know the one single object a human being does not forget when it is raining? Do you? The umbrella. It is the entire reason they left the house. You cannot forget the umbrella in the rain any more than you can forget your own legs. She is not forgetting it, you dear, blind, hopeless boy. She is leaving it. On purpose. So that she has a reason, a respectable, deniable reason, to come back into this shop and stand at that counter and talk to the man who runs it. She has done it 3 times, because 3 times she has stood here giving you every opening a shy woman knows how to give, and 3 times you have handed her umbrella back like you couldn't wait to see the back of her. And I have watched that girl walk out into the rain looking a little more heartbroken each time, because she thinks, Simon, she thinks you don't want her. I sat there, and the whole world reorganized itself around me. Every Friday, every lingering 15 minutes, every pink cheek and tucked strand of hair, the whole of it flipping over like a card to show a picture I had been too certain of my own unpickability to see. No, I said, but it came out weak. Winnie, women like her don't. Not for men like, oh, don't you dare, Winnie said. And now her eyes were wet. Don't you dare give me that men like me nonsense. I knew your mother 40 years, and I have watched you decide since you were 23 that you're the spare man, the safe harbor, the one nobody picks, and it broke her heart and it's breaking mine. Let me tell you something. That girl comes in here every Friday and buys herself flowers because no one's ever bought them for her. And she stands at that counter talking to a gentle man who slips lilac into her bouquet thinking she'll never notice. Except she did notice, Simon. She asked me what the purple ones meant a month ago, and I told her, and do you know what she did? She smiled like Christmas, and she kept coming back. She knows. She has known for a month what you were saying in the flowers, and she has been leaving umbrellas trying to get you to say it out loud, and you have been too busy believing you're unlovable to notice you've been loved this whole time. I could not speak. Winnie picked up the third umbrella from behind the counter and held it out to me like an exhibit in a trial. Look at it, Simon. Really look at it. It's not even a forgettable umbrella. It's bright yellow, the most noticeable thing in this whole gray shop. She could have left a glove, a receipt, something small and plausible. She left the loudest thing she owns, over and over, in the one place on earth a person cannot forget it, because some part of her kept hoping you'd finally see it for what it was. That's not forgetfulness. That's a woman shouting at the top of her lungs in the only language she was brave enough to use, and you kept turning the volume down and handing it back. She set the umbrella on the counter between us. Your mother spent her whole life teaching strangers to read the unspoken thing. And here it is, spelled out in yellow, sitting on your counter for the third time, and you're the one soul in Ashgrove who couldn't read it. And then, gentler now, she reached over and put her old hand on mine, my mother's oldest friend, and said, "Your mum could read every heart that came through that door except her own son's, because you never let her see it. You kept it behind the counter with the umbrellas. That girl reads you fine. She's just waiting for you to stop hiding. And I'm afraid, love, that you've hidden a bit too long, because it's been 2 weeks now and she hasn't come back, has she? Third umbrella's still behind the counter. She's given up. So the question is what you're going to do about it, and you'd best decide fast, because I heard from the woman at the bakery that Clara Novak's talking about leaving Ashgrove. Says the fresh start didn't take. Says the town's lonelier than the city was. She was right. It had been 2 weeks. In all my careful not hoping I'd registered Clara's absence as a dull ache I hadn't let myself examine, the Friday's gone flat, the best stems wilting because I'd kept holding them back for a woman who wasn't coming. She'd left me the openings, all 3 of them, and I'd handed every one back. And now she thought the gentlest interpretation available, which was that the quiet florist didn't want her, and she was going to leave town carrying that, and it would be one more small proof to her that a woman who buys her own flowers had better not expect anyone else to. And something happened in me then that had not happened since I was 23 years old. I got angry. Not at Clara, not at Winnie. At myself, at the whole cowardly architecture of not hoping I'd built and called wisdom, at the 23-year-old who let one unkind kindness decide the shape of a whole life. Because Winnie was right. I could read every heart but my own, and I'd been so certain of the law of physics that said I was unpickable that I'd made a woman who was picking me feel like she'd read the situation wrong. And I was done. I closed the shop early, which I have never done, and I did the only thing I know how to do when the words won't come, the thing my mother taught me. I built a bouquet. But not a coward's bouquet this time. not a secret one. I built the loudest, most legible bouquet in the history of marguerites, a bouquet that said the whole thing in the old language for anyone who cared to read it, and I made sure Clara could read it, because I'd tuck the meanings on a card, no hiding, no hoping she'd never decode it. Red tulips, a declaration of love. Ambrosia, your love is returned. A single purple lilac, because that's where it started, the first stirring, the thing I'd been slipping into her flowers for months. And then I did the truly terrifying thing. I took the yellow umbrella, her umbrella, the third one, out from behind the counter, and I got Clara's address from the delivery book because she'd had flowers sent to herself once. And I walked out into the pouring Ashgrove rain with a bouquet in one hand and her forgotten umbrella in the other, and I went to return it. She opened the door of a small apartment with half-packed boxes visible behind her, and her face, when she saw me standing in the rain, went through about 4 things at once and settled on a careful, hurt guardedness that told me everything about how badly I'd let her misread me. "Simon," she said, "what are you? You left your umbrella," I said. My voice was shaking. 3 times, actually, I kept them. I keep everything you forget. I couldn't work out why until about an hour ago. I held it out, the yellow umbrella, and then I didn't let go of it, so we were both holding it. And I made myself look at her, which was the hardest thing I've ever done, and I said, "Winnie had to explain to me that you weren't forgetting it, that you were leaving it on purpose, so you'd have a reason to come back. And I want you to know that I didn't hand it back 3 times because I didn't want you. I handed it back because it did not fit inside my understanding of the universe that a woman like you would engineer a reason to see a man like me. I decided a long time ago I was the sort of man people are fond of and never choose, the safe one, the brother. And I was so sure of it that I looked at you leaving me umbrellas in the rain, and I felt sorry for you for being forgetful. I'm an idiot. I read flowers for a living, and I couldn't read the woman standing in front of me because I couldn't believe I was the one being read to. I held out the bouquet. So I brought you this instead of trusting my mouth, because my mouth has never once worked when it mattered. There's a card. It's not in code this time. Read the card." And Clara Novak took the bouquet. And she read the card, the red tulips and the ambrosia and the purple lilac all spelled out plain. Declaration of love. Your love is returned. The first stirring of feeling. And when she looked up, her eyes were streaming. Rain or tears or both. And she said, in a voice that wobbled all over, I asked Winnie what the purple ones meant a month ago. "I know," she told me. Just now. About an hour after I should have figured it out on my own. "I've known for a month what you were putting in my flowers, Simon. I kept coming back hoping you'd say it. And then you kept handing me that umbrella like you couldn't wait for me to leave, and I thought I'd made the whole thing up, that I was some lonely new-in-town woman inventing a romance with the nice florist who was just being polite. And it was so humiliating I stopped coming, and I decided I'd leave. Because if I couldn't even read a man who literally speaks in flowers then." "You read me perfectly," I said. "I'm the one who couldn't read you, and only because I was too certain I was unreadable. Clara, I left the shop early, which I have never done in 4 years, to stand in the rain and return an umbrella I know perfectly well you left on purpose, so that I would have a reason, a respectable, deniable reason, to come to your door. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm leaving you my umbrella. I'm finally, 4 umbrellas too late, doing the brave thing you were brave enough to do 3 times. And Clara laughed, that wet, broken laugh, and she said the thing I'd been too blind to hear in 3 umbrellas. She said it out loud at last, standing in her doorway with my mother's flowers in her arms. I did it on purpose. All of them. Every single time. I left it so I'd have to come back because I liked you so much I couldn't stand it, and you never ever said a word. I'm saying it now, I said. I'm terrible at it, but I'm saying it. Don't leave Ashgrove. Or leave, if you have to, and I'll drive to wherever you are with a fresh bouquet every Friday. But please don't leave because a shy man was too slow to tell you that you're the first thing in 9 years I've let myself hope for. Come back to the shop. Keep forgetting your umbrella forever. I'll keep handing it back for the rest of my life, but from now on I'll know exactly what it means." And she pulled me in out of the rain, umbrella and flowers and all. And she kissed me in the doorway of her half-packed apartment, and 9 years of deciding I was the background man came off me all at once, and I understood, standing there, that I had never been unpickable. I'd just been standing behind a counter with my own heart hidden next to the forgotten umbrellas, waiting for someone brave enough to leave hers 3 times in the rain. She unpacked the boxes. She stayed in Ash Grove. We didn't rush the rest, because a man who's spent 9 years believing he's a safe harbor and never a destination needs a little time to learn he's allowed to be wanted. And a woman who's spent her life buying her own flowers needs a little time to believe someone else will buy them for her now. But she comes to the shop every Friday still, though she lives above it with me now, and she buys herself flowers. And I let her, because it's how she found me, and I'd never take that ritual from her. But she always finds a stem of something extra in the bunch, purple lilac, or ambrosia, or red tulips, and now she can read every one, because Winnie taught her the whole language that first winter out of pure, triumphant joy, so that no man could ever again say a thing to Clara Novak in flowers that she couldn't answer. Winnie takes full credit for the entire romance, and she is entirely correct too. The yellow umbrella hangs on the wall behind the counter now. All 3 of the incidents collapsed in memory into the one bright yellow object, and customers ask about it, and Clara loves to tell them, loves to watch me go red while she explains that she had to leave it in my shop 3 separate times before the florist who speaks fluent flower understood a single word she was saying. I keep it there to remind me of the thing I nearly missed by being so sure of my own smallness. Clara works the shop with me now, most days. It turns out she's got my mother's gift, the reading of people better than I ever had it. She can spot the man who needs the apology roses before he's through the door, the girl buying lilies for a grandmother, the boy too shy to say which flowers are for the person he's too shy to name. She's gentle with the shy ones especially. She says she has a soft spot, having married one. And the strange, good thing is that having her beside me made me braver everywhere, not just with her. I talk to the customers now. Really talk. The way my mother did. Because it turns out the confidence I thought some men were simply born with was a thing that grew in me the moment one person decided I was worth coming back for 3 times in the rain. We got married the following spring, in the shop, surrounded by every flower the season had, and Winnie gave Clara away and cried so hard she couldn't finish her reading, and I made the bouquets myself. And Clara carried red tulips and ambrosia and a single purple lilac, and she read every stem, out loud, to the whole room, so that no one present could mistake what we were saying plainly at last with our actual mouths. My mother could read every heart that came through her door. She'd have read Clara's in a Friday. And she'd have taken one look at her stubborn, blind son, handing that umbrella back for the 3rd time, and she'd have swatted me with a broom and told me what Winnie finally did, which is that the laws of physics I'd built my whole lonely life on were never laws at all. They were just a scared boy's story about why he'd never have to risk being told no. I asked Clara sometimes, late, upstairs, why she didn't just say it the first time, or the second, why she went through 3 umbrellas and nearly left town rather than tell a florist she liked him. And she says, for the same reason you put lilac in my flowers instead of saying it. Because leaving an umbrella is a thing you can take back. If you'd handed it to me and said you forgot this and nothing else, forever, I could always tell myself I'd never really tried. The umbrella was my flowers, Simon. It was the bravest thing I could do that I could still call an accident if you didn't want me. We were both hiding the exact same way. It just took me 3 tries and you 4 to stop. I think about that a lot. In the shop in the morning, cutting stems, the whole language of unsaid things laid out in buckets around me. About how two people can stand on opposite sides of a counter, both loving each other in a code so careful that neither one can hear it. Each one certain they're the only one hoping. Each one leaving little deniable offerings, flowers, umbrellas, in a language they're both too scared to speak plainly. So here's what I've got for you, if you've read this far into a shy man's story. If you've been leaving umbrellas, slipping lilac into other people's bouquets, saying the enormous thing in the smallest deniable way, and praying someone brave will hear it, this is me telling you, from behind the counter of a flower shop where I nearly missed the whole point of my life, say it plainly. Say it with your actual mouth. Or if you can't, if you're built like me and the words won't come, then at least be brave enough to hear it when it's said to you, to believe that the umbrella left 3 times in the rain might just be for you, that you were never as unpickable as your fear insisted. Somebody may be loving you right now in a language you've decided you're not worth learning. I almost missed mine because I could read every heart but couldn't believe anyone was reading me. Don't be as slow as I was. 4 umbrellas is too many. And if you'd stay a while longer with us, subscribe, and let the next story keep you company. There's always a warm light on here at Lamplight, and the kettle's on, and there's a bouquet on the counter that means come back soon, and an umbrella by the door, if you know how to read either one.